are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano,
host of Locked On Rays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making the Locked On Rays podcast your first listen every day. And remember, the Locked On Rays podcast is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Rays. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Rays, and you can email us anytime, lockedonrays@gmail.com. Well, Ulises, this is not a hockey podcast, but there was some Rays-related news in the hockey sphere, in the Tampa Bay Lightning sphere, as I'm going to go out and say it that Brett Phillips and Randy Arozarena are tight. They are pals. They are buddies. They're going to soccer games. Now they're going to hockey games. I love it. I love the dynamic between those two.
I love it too. It's so cool to see your baseball stars being involved with the community in the other professional sport. And I know that that has also happened with football too. So that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. The whole Tampa Bay thing is really a breathing organism now for the last couple of years. And it's nice to feel that way. Again, we were talking about it last episode with the whole Pasco spring training complex situation. When you integrate the whole community, that's an intangible there that I think is valued more than what the dollars say.
Yeah, and it would be even more ingrained and more goodwill built up between the professional sports franchises if and when the Rays are playing in Ybor City. I'm just throwing that out there. But we did pose a question that generated quite a bit of conversation on Twitter, knowing that Brett Phillips and Randy Arozarena were at the recent Lightning game, which was really, really packed from the picture I see here. Which current Rays player on the 40-man roster do you think would make the best hockey player? No wrong answers. And Ulises, I know you're more of a soccer guy than a hockey guy, but I'm curious to hear your take on this. And by the way, we do have another player review today. It is Manny Margot. We will get to that eventually, but figured we would start the episode off with a little fun here, if you will.
Well, I don't really know much about hockey except that they pretty much pummel each other at times. So I would want somebody on the skates that could pummel somebody if they need to. Mike Zunino, I think, has the ability to pummel somebody. I don't know why, but I think, he's no longer in the 40-man. I was going to say Joey Wendell might be a good guy to take off his gloves. He might not even play with gloves.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Mike Zunino's my pick.
Okay, that's your guy.
Yeah.
That's who you're going with. You know what? That's not a bad choice. In fact, I think there's several guys. I know I just say pick one, but Mike Zunino is very high up on that list. And I know some of the listeners out there suggested that he would make a good goaltender. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I would rather him be in the position like you mentioned. Right. I would like him to be a tough defender. I would like him to be a goon. I would like him to get in the corners and push guys and knock guys around. And he wouldn't be afraid to block shots and get in front of somebody. He would be an intimidating presence on a back line, I think. So,
but then again, you have to have somebody agile on skates too, right? So what's that nice competitive balance out there,
right? That
you can throw punches, but still be pretty quick.
And that's why I had to mention a couple guys, because I don't know if there's one Rays player that could do it all and be well-rounded to that extent. And that's the thing is with hockey, just like with every other sport, there's different roles. Usually a goon is not a guy that's going to score 45, 50 goals in a season. So Mike Zunino would know his role. Now the guy, as far as a skill position player that would maybe be agile on the ice and be able to give you a nice little slap shot from the wing. I'm going with Brandon Lau.
Ooh, okay.
The majority of hockey players swing with the left shot, the left hand, if you will. And I think
that's power right there.
He brings a lot of power.
Yeah.
Now, he wouldn't perform in the playoffs. I think we know that. We learned that. He wouldn't score any goals in the playoffs. But I think he we see how well he runs the bases. I think he'd be able to handle himself on the skates. The quickness as an infielder side to side.
I think
he gives me a little Marty St. Louis vibes. He's unassuming of 5'10", 180, but man, he can play some hockey.
He's got the body language too. We've talked about Brandon Lau's body language. I think that he has a hockey one. How about your namesake? And from the north, he's seen some snow. Maybe he knows how to ice skate. Kevin Kiermaier.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
He's tough.
Yeah. And
he's agile.
He has played multiple sports in his youth. He was a noted football player and basketball player.
So it might not be such a stretch to be like, hey, kid, put the blades on.
He could probably do a good job of chasing down pucks. Now, a couple other guys, as far as a goaltender would go.
Okay.
And I know some people mentioned Mike Zunino, but there's two guys, but one guy I think could really fit that role, Tyler Glasnow. Just a guy that's 6'8", 225 pounds. Where's the room to score?
Nothing gets through there. Yeah,
he'd be like Ben Bishop, who now had to retire. But I get those types of vibes from Tyler. Like, I don't have an angle here. Like, he's all arms and legs and chest. How am I going to fit the puck into the net with all that's going on there? And I feel like he's even though he's big, I feel like he's flexible enough and athletic enough to go down and, drop the knee if need be and angle around to stop a puck.
He was a gymnastic kid growing up. And so he's got that background. He's got the flexibility. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure he does do some yoga.
Right. Now, the other guy that I was thinking maybe for a goaltender, and this might be a little bit off the wall, but I just look at a guy who makes a lot of stops defensively, Taylor Walls.
Okay, not bad.
Yeah.
And he's gritty too.
Yes. Now, I guess traditionally goaltenders are a little bit on the bigger side, maybe not to the extent of Tyler Glasnow, but around 6'3", 210, 6'3", 220, and Taylor Walls isn't that size, but there have been some smaller goaltenders in the past, but the reflexes I think
are
would certainly work to his extent. Now, question here before we move along.
Okay.
Who do you think would be the worst hockey player on the Rays 40-man roster?
The worst hockey player, Francisco Mejia.
Okay.
I mean, again, and you can put any of us from Latin America. We really don't have that much familiarity with ice skates. Of course, there are people that go on, on holidays and all that, but it's not something in our DNA,
right?
To go into an ice rink. So I think Mejia might have the most trouble. Who I think would be actually pretty good, Randy Arozarena. I think this guy would take on any challenge. When you see him do backflips and stuff like that, I think Randy Arozarena would have no problem.
Yeah. As far as my guy, who I think would be the absolute worst on the ice, Ji-Man Choi. I think he'd get hurt. I think he'd roll an ankle. He'd pull a calf. You don't see many. There aren't many 260-pound hockey players.
Well,
there might not be any, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Look, I know that some people might make the argument, well, he makes the acrobatic plays at first base. I just don't see.
It's tough on blades.
Yeah, I don't think that would work out well at all.
It's tough on blades. Yeah.
So thank you to the listeners that participated in this. Just running through a couple of quick comments here. Zach Dabb says, I feel like Zunino would be a great keeper. Matt Germain says Mike Zunino would win a Vezina trophy. Raise Up says KK. Matty P says Ji-Man Choi would be a heck of a goalie. R Hill says Meadows or Zunino. I'd be curious as far as Austin Meadows. I don't know how. I mean, maybe being able to hit the puck well, but I don't know how well he would move on the ice. Is there a Georgia hockey team?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's. I don't think like the University of Georgia has a hockey team, or
in the NHL. Like, is there an?
There was the Atlanta Thrashers, but they got relocated. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Austin Meadows doesn't come off to me like a big hockey fan. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
No, he's more chill. He's more fishing.
Yeah, he's more fishing. He's more the fishing guy.
Yeah.
Chris says Fairbanks would be intense as a hockey player. Now he's got the look. He's got the intense look. I'll give him that.
Good one, Chris.
Yeah.
Good one, Chris.
Yeah. And then Amy Brain ranks him 1, 2, 3. Pete Fairbanks, Mike Zunino, Brandon Lau. I think one thing that gets overlooked about Brandon Lau is we sort of joke and shed light on the fact that he's got so much power punched into a 5'10", 180-pound frame, but he's got a thick lower half.
Yeah.
Thighs and calves, and that's what you need as a hockey player, and you're moving on those skates. Marty St. Louis, for example, again. Just Google Marty St. Louis and thighs, and you'll be like, what the heck are these? Did he...
Not safe for work.
Yeah, essentially. There we go. Okay, we will move along to our player review of Manny Margot, but first, Ulises, we got to tell the audience about something called Stance.
Yes, Stance apparel represents a radical reinvention of socks, underwear, and active apparel. With a sharp focus on comfort, quality, and creativity, Stance brings an atypical aesthetic alongside some of pop culture's hottest collaborators by the ultimate in style and self-expression. Because everything you wear should be a direct extension of who you are and how you feel. For example, they've got Batman gear, MLB, NBA, Star Wars, The Office. Of course, Kevin has mentioned that in the past, Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm. You're watching that last night, actually.
I was.
Yeah.
I saw Deathly Hallows Part 1, and I couldn't keep off it, and so I watched Part 2 because I love it. By the way, they also have got Marvel. Are you a Marvel fan, Kevin?
Not particularly. No.
You don't have a favorite superhero from the Marvel universe?
I don't even know if I would be correct in what a Marvel superhero is. Is Spider-Man Marvel?
There we go. That's
okay,
good.
Thank you.
There you go. Well, we can get into the whole Sony thing, but
Close
yeah,
enough.
Spider-Man is close enough. And now let's get back to Stance. Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in. That those who feel good do good. Go see for yourself. Register for an account at stance.com and get 15% off your first purchase. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout and to apply. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance.
Isn't the new Spider-Man movie coming out?
It is No Way Home.
Are you seeing that?
I want to, but I have to do a refresher. I like to do the refresher.
Yeah.
Like I want to see the number 1, I want to see the number 2, and then I'll see this one. So it'll be a minute.
I just can't keep up with the superhero movies.
They're a lot.
Maybe when I'm just rewatching Dexter, maybe that's my problem. I need to venture outside of my comfort zone and watch new things. I don't know. I think that's what it is. Okay, Manny Margot.
Hello.
Player review, what went right, what went wrong in his future with the team. Plus, we give him a little grade at the end. I don't think it'll be quite as controversial as the Brandon Lau grade that we presented. But Ulises, let's present Manny Margot.
Yes, Manny Margot had a slash line of 254, 313, 382 for a 696 OPS. He had 10 home runs, 57 RBIs, 13 stolen bases, a WRC plus of 95, an F WAR of 1.4. Did you get his BREF WAR?
Interestingly, it was double of his F WAR, 2.8.
Oh, wow. So they're looking at a 1.92 WAR guy. Okay.
Essentially.
If you combine those two. Can we start with the positives?
That's what we usually do. What went right with Manny Margot?
This guy is a really, really good defensively. At least the defensive metrics on him. We were talking about how defensive metrics are not really fan of Brandon Lau. The defensive metrics love this guy. I mean,
yes,
out above average. He's in the 99th percentile. I don't care how accurate these defensive metrics are, but when you're in the 99th percentile, that is just good.
Yeah.
I mean, you're elite in that metric itself. If it has some flaws, whatever, it still shows that you're elite in it. So that's pretty good. And when you put that together with the sprint speed in the 87th percentile, the outfielder's jump in the 82nd percentile, you can see that his value defensively is really good, especially when you pair him up with a guy who's also really good in the outfield, like Kevin Kiermaier.
It's interesting you bring that up about his defense. MLB.com actually labeled him as the rangiest defender from this past year, awarding him the most combined 4-star and 5-star catches.
Look at that.
He had 13. After that, it was Kike Hernandez with 11, Michael Taylor with 11, Harrison Bader with 10, and then 4 players tied with 8. I didn't look at the 4 players tied with 8. I would assume that Kevin Kiermaier would have to be up there.
Maybe.
But who knows? But and maybe here's why his Fangraphs WAR was a little bit lower than B-Ref, or I guess half of
Yeah.
B-Ref, is Fangraphs actually rated him as a negative defender in whatever algorithm or
Make it make sense.
Whatever formula they come up with. Now it's barely negative, but it's still.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't know how anybody could come up with that with Manny Margot. And then if you look at Fielding Bible, they credit him with 13 defensive runs saved between all three outfield spots. And here's the thing about Manny Margot is the versatility to play left field, center field, and right field and do them all, not just adequately, but very, very well.
Yeah.
At times.
Let's remember when Manny Margot gets traded to the Rays, they were already making articles about, is this the first time we're going to see a two outfielder team?
Yeah.
Kevin Kiermaier and Manny Margot. That was pretty lofty. So you can see the value defensively, but you can also see the value in the way that he utilizes his plate discipline. He might not walk a ton, but he doesn't strike out a ton.
Yes.
In fact, on a team that strikes out so much in baseball, he had the second lowest K rate at 15.1% in the whole team. By the way, the only guy who was better than him was future MVP Wander Franco.
Yeah.
So it's a nice change of pace when you've got a guy who's not going to strike out,
right?
Who's just going to put the ball in play, and is not going to be victimized by a lack of speed either.
Yeah, and it's actually, I think we can just label Manny Margot. He's, like you said, he's not going to walk a ton, and I think part of that is that, let's be honest, teams aren't necessarily fearing Manny Margot. They're going to attack him and go after him. It's like, okay, if you beat me on an infield single, you bloop one over the shortstop or second baseman's head. Okay, you're not Brandon Lau up here at the plate. But the lowest strikeout rate of his career, now not a huge walk rate or on-base percentage, but it's refreshing to not have to see a guy strike out 28, 29% of the time. Now, as far as continuing on his positives, and look, I don't think we're not going to joke around here and say that Manny Margot is a perennial all-star player, future Hall of Famer, or anything like that. He's just a solid ball player that's a consistent ball player. I think for the most part, year in and year out, outside of the 2020 pandemic season, you sort of know, we can sort of pinpoint what you're going to get from Manny Margot. You're going to get excellent defense. You're going to get a batting average around 250. You're going to get a strikeout rate under 20%. You might get a dozen home runs, 18 to 20 doubles, 10 to 12 stolen bases. That, 690, 700 OPS, that's about what you're going to get. And just the consistency month to month.
Yeah.
Ahead in the count, behind in the count, pre-All-Star break, post-All-Star break. Like, he's just, it's not like we talk about streaky hitters, and the Rays have had their fair share of streaky hitters. It's not like Manny Margot 1 month hits 400, and another month he hits 160. It's, I'll hit 270 1 month and 240 another month. And that's basically what you get.
And especially when you have the depth that the Rays have right now, let's go back to 2019. That spot was Guillermo Heredia's.
Yeah.
Manny Margot is like not only one step, but like 5 steps above what Guillermo Heredia can
Guillermo
provide.
Heredia is the definition of replacement level player. Manny Margot is 1.5 to 2 win player at the least.
And Manny Margot in a team that that is not looking to be a perennial playoff contender would get 50 at bats, maybe even 500 at bats. He would be played, almost daily. Margot, honestly, if you look at his positives at the plate, the splits are so obvious.
Yeah.
Though when he bats against lefties, he's really, really good. In 187 at bats, he had a slash line of 273, a 346 on base, 406 slugging for a 753 OPS. That's healthy. Mm-hmm. That's real healthy.
Yeah.
So that fourth outfielder spot, when you're trading Heredia to Manny Margot, you can definitely see the difference there.
And even versus righties, it's not like he's totally, he's a total platoon guy. Like he can still sort of hold his own against righties. It's not like he's a 160 hitter versus righties. I mean, I think he's like a 235. That's league average.
No, yeah. Again, it's what you are okay with a fourth outfielder giving you that those types of numbers, but you could really maximize the positives in Manny Margot if you don't have to utilize him so much against righties.
Now, the other thing with Manny Margot, before we move on to what went wrong with him from this past season, I mean, just the availability of, as I mentioned with the stats, is you pretty much know you're going to get 125, 140 games out of him.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to stay healthy with a guy that KK, with his history of getting hurt.
Yeah.
And you have to have a guy who can step up, provide good defense, provide a decent bat. Yeah. That's Manny Margot.
Can I say this about his defense? What I really love from Manny Margot is he does so many things well, whether it is making a diving catch in the alley, whether it's a ball over his head that he's able to track, whether it's a ball in foul territory that he gets to, the basket catches. He makes the basket catches look so easy. Like, how do you do that? You are such a magician with that. So, okay, is that Stu Sternberg blowing up your phone over there? What's going on?
Well,
Stu keeps, come on, Stu.
He didn't like
it's after 5.
He didn't like it, man. He was like, I got to get the boys a little bit of crap. So,
or is that intern McGee having some bathroom troubles?
No, I don't think intern McGee showed up today, actually. So.
Yeah, intern McGee might have quit after some of the crap talking, literally, that we presented in front of our audience there. Okay, so what went wrong with Manny Margot from 2021?
What went wrong? Boy, what went wrong? I really could focus, number one, on the power side of his production here.
Right.
The slugging was the lowest of the team at 382.
Yeah, that he's, again, we praised Manny Margot for what he is. We have to also acknowledge that he's a number 7, number 8 hitter. What I would prefer is if he was able to get that on base percentage up to like 350, 360, then he could be a great number 2 leadoff guy. But because again, he puts the ball in play a lot, but it's not a lot of extra base hits. It's a lot of bloop singles.
Yes.
And that sometimes you need that, and sometimes it'd be nice to have a triple or a double.
And when you talk about WRC plus on the team, he was also last at 95. For those again that want to get a little bit more explanation on WRC plus, it's a great comparison tool for players for offensive production. Remember, 100 is league average, so meaning 150 would be 50% above league average. So he was 5% down at 95. Yes.
Does the WRC plus take into account position?
It takes into account park factors. So anything, it kind of like it condenses every extenuating circumstance into one tool. So for example, a 120 WRC plus in Coors Field is not the same as somebody in a pitcher. So you get docked for where you are.
Now, in Margot's defense, if Margot was a first baseman or a third baseman, then that WRC plus would be like, you got to bring that up a little bit. But because he's naturally, essentially a center fielder. So you're talking about an up the middle position. I don't usually expect a guy like that to have a WRC plus of 115 or 120.
That's correct. The problem is when you compare him with the other outfielders like Kevin Kiermaier and Brett Phillips, they do have a higher WRC plus. So in his own company, he was last on the team. We talk about the splits a little bit. The right-handed OPS, 650 OPS. Is it okay for a fourth outfielder? Yes. The problem is that he actually took 234 at-bats against righties.
Yeah.
So you are seeing too much of the flaws by getting a lot of playing time against righties. I know that you can't always pick your spots. People get hurt. You have to step up.
Right.
But the production really wasn't there against righties.
Here's my thing, and we've mentioned this, the stolen bases. He was caught stealing 8 times. He had 13 stolen bases, caught stealing 8 times. Not a very good percentage. And the only really couple theories that I have on this is, again, sometimes you're just bad call, whatever it may be, but he has gotten slightly slower since he entered the league. When he entered the league, his rookie year, his sprint speed was 30.1 feet per second. Now it hovers around 28.4, 28.6 feet per second. And that's been decreasing essentially every year since he came into the league. And his, just to base, home to first has gone from, when he first got into the league, 4.11 seconds to now 4.27 seconds. So maybe he's gotten a little bit slower and he needs to start relying or improving his base running instincts if he is going to try to swipe a bag, getting a better jump, not hesitating on when you're going to make that jump. Maybe you have to take into account who's the pitcher here, who's the catcher here, what type of pitch is going to be thrown here. You can't just, he's getting to a point in his career where he can't just rely on his pure flat out speed to be safe 80, 90% of the time.
And the thing is, you talk about the percentage, 62% stolen base rate, 62%. That's awful. Yeah. Honestly, that should not happen with a guy that has his wheels. I know you're talking about him deteriorating.
He's still very fast, speed. But like when he first entered the league, he was 99%.
Well, what do you think happens though? Like in your head, you don't really feel like in his head, maybe he doesn't feel like he still has that same speed. So he's still going, and he might have been safe 3-4 years ago in the spots that he's taken, but you have to adjust because that's the first thing that goes as a ball player. You know, the speed, the quickness, that's the first thing that goes. So a guy that relied so much on that, you can see it. Again, 13 stolen bases, 8 caught stealing. That cannot happen. So I'm hopeful that can kind of turn around. I don't know if there's a problem there with some guys not really taking the right spots, because in the top 15 caught stealing, the Rays had 3. Randy Arozarena was number 1, right, tied with Shohei Ohtani, Manny Margot, and Joey Wendell. So I think that's troubling. Devil's advocate, of course, if you're a team that runs, you're probably going to be caught more often than other teams that don't run at all. So devil's advocate there. But, still, I wouldn't want to see a guy getting 13 stolen bases and getting caught 8. That just can't happen.
I agree. And we've talked about Manny Margot, for the most part, being able to stay healthy throughout his career. Now, he did have a left hamstring strain that forced him to miss some time in July. Okay, so that's what went right and what went wrong with Manny Margot. Now we'll get to his future with the team, which I think is kind of an interesting question. But before we get to that, we've got to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues to march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number 1 spot for all the sports action this season. Be sure to head over to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. LOCKEDON is the promo code to receive that bonus. BetOnline, it is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports, and it's where the game starts. All right, Ulises, Manny Margot, his future with the Rays in 2022 and maybe beyond. According to MLB trade rumors, he is projected to make somewhere around $5 million in arbitration this upcoming season, and he'll be a free agent in 2023. So I ask you, Ulises, will Manny Margot be on the Rays roster in 2022 at $5 million, give or take?
Man, someone's got to go, right? I feel like this is a choice conversation where like somebody's got to go. Bradley either with Kiermaier, and Meadows and Arozarena. Somebody's got to go. Choice still there.
So who is it then? Is it Phillips? Is it Margot? Is it KK? Is it somebody else?
I mean, honestly, like when I look at Manny Margot, I love what he can provide because KK gets hurt a lot. After seeing, KK's deep numbers as we did in his player review, I kind of doubt that they'll move on from KK. I don't think KK's tenure is done with the Rays, especially because I don't feel like the Rays are going to go back to a $65 million payroll. I think they're going to hover a little bit around the 80 million mark, which we would never thought that they would come. That's actually where they are right now. I think they're 82 right now. So I honestly don't know, man. I really don't know. If they're not getting rid of KK, if they're not getting rid of Phillips, if they're not getting rid of Margot, is it the same team essentially? I mean, they're just going to replace a Nelson Cruz and then that's it. Maybe. I think $5 million though, it's just a tad too high.
Yeah,
for what I would like his role to be, which is just a platoon guy. But worst case scenario, if KK is traded, then I see it as very easy if I were Kevin Cash. Brett Phillips, you take care of the right-handed pitchers. Manny Margot, you take care of lefties. That's my center field.
And you just saved $6 or $7 million. Question.
Yes.
If you consider Manny Margot to be a platoon player, is Kevin Kiermaier a platoon player? Well, because MLB.com just rated Manny Margot as the rangiest outfielder in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, but the thing is, he did have better splits than Manny Margot. 676 OPS in his weak side. Manny Margot has a 650 OPS.
Okay, but is it? I mean, 676 versus 650. We're not talking 850 versus 650 here.
No, but if you're just splitting hairs, maybe the $6 million.
I don't know. I don't know if $6 million. I don't know if an OPS of 20 points more is worth that extra $6 million.
But that's not it, right? It's the leadership. It's the fan drive of everybody knows who Kevin Kiermaier is. It's the bubblehead called Kiermaier Claus right behind me. It's all that, it's the bolts. It's him being engaged with that community there too. We were talking about hockey earlier. Well, who is the most famous Rays player to have been a Bolts guy? Kevin Kiermaier. That matters. Those intangible things matter. If they didn't matter, Jim-An Choi would not have been a Ray since 2019. But they matter to the Rays. So that's tough for me to just think KK's gone. But then again, somebody has to.
I'm seeing a lot of rumors. I'm seeing a lot of articles about KK getting shipped off to the Phillies or elsewhere. Yeah. So once the lockout ends,
we'll see some movement.
I think we will. So, okay, can I throw it to you like this?
Okay.
Is there any scenario where you see Phillips, Margot, and KK on the team in 2022?
Yeah.
Okay. What's kind of your percentage chance of that or odds?
Flip coin, honestly, because again, I don't think you can trade Kiermaier for a lot of value. So why would you give him up for nothing? You would have to attach a Taylor Walls to him. You would have to attach a Vidal Brujan to him to get something back of value. You can't get a lot of value by only just trading KK. So
I don't know. The Rays got a lot for Chris Archer. They might be able to get. I'm not under the assumption that it's just a straight money dump. I think they could come up with some sort of creative deal here.
I think if KK is dealt off, I think it'll be in the trade deadline. Because then you can open up a spot for now Josh Lowe to really settle in. Maybe he had got a cup of coffee in May, June. He was taking care of a corner outfield position. Boom, KK is gone. Then you push. Remember, that's how the Rays operate with a young prospect. They kind of ship off the guy. They give him a little taste. They bring him back down. They ship off the guy, and then they give him, here you go. It happened with Willie Adames with Daniel Echeverria. It happened with Wander Franco. It happened with probably Josh Lowe.
I just find it hard to see the Rays investing, $20 million between Phillips, Margot, and KK
it's a lot
this
of money.
Upcoming year.
But again, they look like they're not going to, be as penny pinchers as they were.
Oh, Stu would disagree. I think that's why he's blowing up your phone.
He's like,
right
dude,
now.
I am not going to spend $80 million. Go back to 65.
Au contraire, sir.
You just wait until February.
Quit throwing this $80 million payroll crap up there.
Stop putting it out in the ether that I'm going to be paying $80 million.
And honestly, even if KK does get the boot, I don't think it's like, who's going to be our center fielder? I honestly think Margot could really handle center field.
I think it's tailor-made.
Yes.
Platoon that stuff.
I think that, and I don't think he has any trouble handling center field. In fact, if he gets the opportunity to play more games in center field, I think he would just get more comfortable in that role. In fact, some guys think it's harder to play in the corners with the way the ball cuts and slices off the bat, where you're playing center, you can sort of see the ball more true there. And it just, I was looking back at some highlights of Manny Margot, and he played center field in that last Yankees series before the season ended. And he made some really, really great plays. He actually had to call off Randy Rosarena one time. We've seen some issues with Randy wanting to, get in on the action there. Okay. So grade time for Manny Margot.
Got my red Sharpie out here. I think positives, negatives, everything I want to see. 81, a B minus. I think he studied. He did his best. 81 is, I think, a fair grade for Manny Margot's 2021.
I think you're becoming a tougher grader. You've stepped it up.
Yeah?
Yeah,
what
you are becoming that tough teacher. I gave him an 84, solid B.
Okay.
I think maybe because I put some more weight in the B war as opposed to the F war. Now, if we combine those two and
1.9,
2-war player for what he made and how he performed. Look, we know what he is. Yeah. I think that's what we come down to with Manny Margot. And I think in some sense, he's sort of underrated and undervalued by the average fan out there with some of the things that he can do.
Question for you. 2022, let's say KK does get shipped off to the Phillies and he plays under Joe Girardi and they can talk about the good old days. How do you, what would be your best case scenario? Manny Margot, number one in center field, or do you like the Brett Phillips? You take the righties, Manny Margot, you take the lefties. That's how we're going to do center field.
I mean, generally, yes, but I would like to see more Manny Margot than Brett Phillips out there.
Okay.
I would like to see Manny Margot probably get about the same amount of action that he's getting right now.
Okay. Fair enough.
Would you like to see Brett Phillips get more action versus righties?
100%.
That strikeout rate just concerns me to death.
Well, this is the thing.
And I think that I think it's last year. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, against lefties, let me say this. I never want to see Brett Phillips against lefties.
Yeah.
I would be okay with seeing Manny Margot against some righties.
Right.
But I never want to see Brett Phillips against a lefty.
I think Brett Phillips, and I don't have his numbers right up in front of me. I don't see Brett Phillips coming out with another year like that. I don't see him hitting 3 grand slams in a span of 20 at-bats.
Do you see him getting a 36% strikeout rate again?
Probably, yeah.
And on that
note, there we go. Hopefully, again, 81, 84. We're not going to have a follow-up episode on Manny Margot's grade. I think, hey, we're giving him a low B.
Yeah.
Mid-level B, that's your grade. There we go. All right. Thank you for making the Locked On Rays podcast your first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Locked On Bets podcast. Tomorrow, we will have a player review of one Shane McClanahan, as well as some trivia in Name That War. Stay tuned for that. Also, next week, we should have a couple fun guests over the next couple weeks. So that should be some entertainment for you folks. All right. Have a great day and evening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.